What's up? My name's Noah, and you're watching The Productive Producer. Frequently in my sessions with my students, they often ask me what I have in my Ableton template. And I felt like it was important for us to talk about that today because using a template is so helpful for so many reasons. First reason, obviously it saves you time. When you're starting with the generic Ableton template each time, you're setting yourself up to do a lot more work over and over and over again, right? It doesn't take a long time to create a new audio track, group a bunch of audio tracks. If you keep doing those things over and over and over again, it's going to add up. Like, think of how many hours you plan to spend in the studio. Think of how many hours you already spend in the studio, and think of how much time that is taken up each session with you just doing things over and over again that you do every single time you open a project. So that's obviously number one. Number two is it keeps you organized. You can see right here on the right side, I have everything color coded to the exact color specifications that I like. I have that colored in a certain way so I can visually see everything as the mix progresses. So later on, say I'm making a track for a client, I can export all those groups and send them the stems if they request them. So that's tip number two. Number three, your routing is already saved. A lot of people, they sidechain their kick to their synths, or their synths to their kick, however you like to say it. They do that, they go through they load the compressor, they route it to the right channel, they make sure that the filtering is set up, and they do that every single time. Well, how awesome would it be if you already had that saved? You can see right here, I have a compressor already set on my synth group that is routed to my kick. So I don't have to redo that each time. I don't have to put it on every single track in the group either because it's already there. So it saves you time, keeps you organized, and saves all of your routing so you don't have to do a bunch of things over and over again. Mind you, these are things that I do. You don't have to do these exact same things, but it helps if you can be conscious of this while you're producing, of like, okay, so I do this a lot. Would it save me time to load this into my template? Let's cut those times down, save ourselves some time and hassle, and get back to the important thing, which is making music. So let's dive into my template. This is how I have it set up. Let's press Option U and expand all the tracks. Bonus tip right there. All right, so I have my kick. I have a MIDI if I wanted to use a drum rack. I have kick audio because I like to use audio. All these are audio tracks down here. You can use, if you like using a drum rack, feel free to use audio or MIDI. These are interchangeable. Again, my template is not the Bible. Your workflow is your workflow for a reason. So if your workflow is similar to mine, awesome, copy mine. If it's different, then you should integrate that how you see fit. Okay, so I have my snares, cymbals, percussion. I have build kick, build snare, build clap, toms, percussion, like anything. Usually I'll interchange these and rename them quickly if I'm working and I need to load something in that's different, especially if something that is really unique. Oftentimes I don't use all of these things either, so if I'm not using it by the end of the project, I'll just delete that channel. Right up here at the top, we have a drum bus and relay. Just a relay is just a routing plugin from Isotope. Okay, next one. The sub bass group. I have an audio, so if I'm using 808 samples or any bass samples, you put it in there. And then my MIDI, which is a preset, I already have loaded in there, and it's just a Serum preset, just a sub bass. All right, so next one, my synths. I guys told you about the compressor on the group that will duck everything that will duck everything in the group whenever it's triggered by the kick. I have a bunch of MIDI tracks, and you'll notice here I have a compressor, EQ, phase invert, saturator, channel EQ, and relay. So this is my default MIDI track. So if you guys wanted to set up something, this is another way to automate the process. Whenever you create a MIDI track, Ableton's default MIDI track is just blank. So you can add stuff in there. I use Serum a lot. So I put Serum, loaded all this other stuff in there, and then I right-clicked here and clicked Save as Default MIDI Track. And now every time I create a new MIDI track, all that stuff comes up. All right, the effects group, these are all audio tracks. You can see that they're all at -15 dB. Whenever I created a default audio track, it comes in at -15 because I like to mix at a low volume. I'm always checking my signal flow, so I'm not just putting it at -15 and calling it a day. I'm always making sure that I'm not clipping at any stage in the process, but having it -15 helps me keep my mix low during the production process, so I'm not having to pull everything back every single time when I'm working. So that is the effects group. Over here we have the vocal group, got a CLA vocals right over there. I'll add in effects as I need them. I don't work with vocals all that much, and usually when I get vocals that I'm working with, they're already pre-processed, so I don't have very much processing on my vocal tracks. But if I'm recording a vocalist, for instance, then we're gonna get into all kinds of vocal plugins that I'll be using. Right down here I have a click track, which is basically like a second metronome. If I wanted to have a little bit of swing on my metronome, I just have a simple 808, it looks like a clave sample here. So that helps with the, if I wanted to really create some extra groove in my click track, I can make my own custom click track, add some groove to it, and write to that instead of using Ableton's stock click track. And then last we have the reference down here, which I have key mapped right here to this button right next to the one. I'm not really sure what button this is, what you would call it, but I don't ever use it, so that's why I key mapped it to my my reference track down here. Also brought down to -15, so I can reference between a song. If I'm trying to copy something from another song, like, I really like that, I want to try to see if I can replicate that in one of my songs, I'll drop it down here, and when I'm listening, I'll just flip it back and forth right there. Just hitting this turns it on solo. And you might be asking, well, you could just press S with that channel selected, right? But oftentimes I don't have this particular channel selected. I'm working on something up here with my drums or my synths, and I just want to have that access to just flip it back to solo that reference track right there. Down here we have for my sends, I have reverb, saturator, and a stereoizer. So I have just a couple of sends down there. I use the reverb one the most, saturator sometimes as well. Stereoizer I use occasionally, but not as often as some of you may use it. So down here I have on my master channel, I have two things. I have a quick master chain that I got from the Disciple guys. Great master chain. Go check out their video on Figures master chain. It's awesome. All stock plugins from Ableton. And I have a mono utility, which I have key mapped to M. So whenever I press M on my track, if I want to check my mix in mono, then I can just come down there and press M. So how do you save all these settings into a template? Let's press Command, comma. We're gonna go to File folder, and we're gonna hit Save Current Set as Default. Hope you guys liked the video. If you would like some cool samples, presets, and other cool production stuff, and maybe some studio time with me, head over to the Productive Producer Patreon. I've linked it in the description for you, right down there. So if you guys want to check that out, please do so. And until next time, we'll see you in the next video. Peace.